Hello, my name is Nick Polkuski, and I'm the owner of a company called Your Podcast Guru. And here we help you get your message to your audience with ease in order to maximize your impact and your income. And I just wanted to welcome you to the very first episode of The Power of Podcasting. And here we're going to talk all about the tips, tricks, strategies, and procedures that are going to help you grow a podcast, and more importantly, use that podcast to grow your personal brand and build a strong business. But first, before we actually dive into a lot of the content that's coming here in future episodes, I just wanted to give you a quick little overview of my story, how I got involved in podcasting, how this podcast actually came about, and what to really expect here moving forward in the future. When I was 9 years old, I had a dream. And I never would have expected things to turn out the way they did exactly, but I've always had this dream to own my own business. And you can say I started down this path at a very young age. Because you see, back in kindergarten, when I used to ride the school bus on the way home, I actually would save up a lot of my snacks, like my fruit snacks, especially the Scooby-Doo ones. Those were big hits. But I would trade those snacks for small little toys. And things started out with those little McDonald's toys. Eventually I traded a few of those toys up to full-size action figures. And after a few weeks, I actually traded my way all the way up to a brand new bicycle. Yeah, I got in trouble for that. And that shut down that business. But that was just the very start of my entrepreneurial journey. And it just kind of set me on down a road that would continue all throughout my life. And it wasn't until I actually arrived at college where things started to really form. I started to realize the power of marketing and what it took to be an effective marketer. And nothing taught me that lesson more than this scenario. Now just imagine, if you will, that you are in a coffee shop and you see a beautiful girl or guy sitting across from you, and your hands get a little sweaty, you're a little nervous, and you want to go up and talk to him. So you kind of stroll your way on up there, tap them on the shoulder and say, "Will you marry me?" Yeah, that's not going to work out so well. You're going to get the bear mace or the turn and walk away or simply ignore you kind of situation there. Yeah, you can't make that big jump. You can't go for that big ask without first developing that relationship. And the same applies in the business world or in any of the relationships that we're involved in. You need to add value first. So you need to walk up, tap them on the shoulder, and say, "Hi, my name's Nick. It's nice to meet you. What's your name?" Get engaged in that conversation a little bit. Talk to them, find out a little bit, create that relationship. And then, you maybe ask for that little ask, that first date. Then you ask for another date and another date, and maybe eventually down the line, you can go for the big ask. But it takes a while to build up to that. You need to create a relationship. You need to create a connection. Same exact thing goes for your business too. Because I've kind of built my business and helped other clients build theirs as well on this simple philosophy that the best way to grow your business is to consistently add value to your audience, to create that relationship by giving, and then they're going to be more likely to buy from you, and they're going to have a greater relationship. They're going to refer you. They're going to bring other people into your audience because they love your content, because they love the message that you're sharing, the information, the value you are providing them. So that's really what we need to focus around. And that's where I think podcasting is an incredible tool. There's a huge amount of power in a podcast. And we're going to dive into that. But first, before we do, what exactly is a podcast? Probably the best way to describe it is on-demand radio, on-demand subscription radio. You can just sign up for it, and if you're watching this, you are subscribed to a podcast most likely, or you randomly found it some way because this is a podcast. So really what a podcast is, it allows you to deliver that value to your audience in a way that they get notified every single time you produce content. So that's pretty awesome. But now, how did I actually get involved in podcasting? Well, it actually started out back when I was a freshman in college, back in 2006. I can still remember sitting under my lofted bed and plugging my MP3 player. It was a really very small, hold like 2 or 3. It It held like 20 songs at best. It was a super small MP3 player, but I used to plug it into my computer, and I would have to download the podcast from iTunes, upload them onto my MP3 player in order to listen to a new episode. Well, things have changed a lot since then, but that's where I really started falling in love with this medium. Just this fact that I could be anywhere, I could be working out, I could be answering emails, I could be sitting in class sometimes, listening to a podcast. That was super awesome to me. And as my business grew, I really started my first business in college, where I traveled around the country speaking to high school and college student organizations. And as one of the ways to market that, I decided, hey, I want to dive into this podcasting thing. And so I slowly began to figure it out. I figured out all the little aspects of it. I had to scour the internet to try and piece together how to actually put out a podcast. But once I started figuring this out, I would then bring in people to interview, and I actually had a friend that I brought on. His name was Hal Elrod. Many of you probably know him, or probably have heard of his podcast or his book, The Miracle Morning. And we'll be talking to him on a future episode. But anyways, I had him on. He did a phenomenal job, and I actually had some of my audience members wanting to hear more from Hal. But when I looked back at his website, he blogged maybe every 3 months or so. He wasn't consistently producing that content. So through some twisting of his arm, and eventually we worked out an agreement where I would help run his show. And so we started our first podcast, and things kind of just snowballed from there. That podcast ended up being very successful, and people started emailing me on a regular basis asking about podcasting and how do I do this, how do I do that. And finally, I just got to the point where I decided I need to look at this as an actual business. I need to see if I can do something with this. So Your Podcast Guru was formed, and then I started providing a service where every single month I will help you produce for a monthly fee, I will help you produce your podcast episodes. All you have to do is take care of creating the content. You hit the record button, and as soon as you hit that stop button, you send me the audio files, and my team and I take care of the rest, and you have a high quality podcast. So that's really kind of where my background is, and really it's allowing people to deliver value to their audience with little to no effort, with the least amount of effort possible. That's what a company, Your Podcast Guru, was designed around. Essentially what we do is we provide done-for-you podcasting. You produce the content, we take care of the rest. I've dedicated my company to focusing around this one tool, this one marketing tool, because that's what podcasting really is. It is a marketing tool. It's a way for you to get your business known, to add value to your clients and your audience in order to grow your business. That's our ultimate objective, not to get sponsorships or make podcasting the business, but we want to use a podcast as a tool to grow your actual business. And so that's what this podcast is really designed to help you do. We're going to talk a lot about strategies, what you need to think about when setting up your podcast in order to grow your business, and not just create an audience, but to actually get that ROI, get that return on investment, that where you actually see your business grow because of your podcast. And yes, we're going to talk about branding, we're going to talk about growing your audience, and we're going to bring in people who are experts at adding value to their audience, not necessarily podcasts. We're going to have some people who don't have a podcast on the power of podcasting, but what they're going to have is they're going to have a consistent, proven track record of adding value to their audience in order to grow a solid business that they can be proud of. That's what we want to do for you. We want to help you maximize both your impact, but also your income. It's those two things that need to be coming together. And I just think podcasting is the best tool for that. Because it's our human voice. It's our voice that allows us to create that connection. And I'm actually going to create a bonus video for you soon that I'm going to put on my website, and I'll link to that in this podcast. That really shows the power of your voice. That where we dive in a little bit more of why it's our human voice. It's the sound of it that really creates that connection, creates that power, which allows you to then build those relationships with your audience and ultimately grow your business. And here's what to expect moving forward in the future. It's going to be a mix of short 8-minute-ish episodes that are packed with strategies and tactics. And every couple weeks, we're going to bring on a case study, and those will be longer interviews. But we're gonna talk to clients of mine, students who've gone through the Podcasting for Profits course, or even bring on a few outside experts who might not have a podcast, but the one thing they're excellent at is consistently adding value to their audience in order to grow your business. That's really going to be the premise of everything here that we do with the power of podcasting. And we're going to release a new episode every single Friday, so you can subscribe to the audio by going to yourpodcastguru.com/iTunes, or you can subscribe to the video by going to yourpodcastguru.com/TV. Or frankly, if you just want to find out more information about the podcast and see both the show notes and the audio and video podcast, simply go to powerofpodcasting.tv. So for this very first introductory episode, I just want to thank you for being here. And also, after each episode, I want to give you a resource, some sort of resource sheet that you can get to really take action. And for this very first one, what I want to offer you is my podcasting blueprint. This is basically shows you everything I think about before we launch a podcast, before we get going with a podcast and really start down that road. So simply text the word podcast blueprint, one word, podcast blueprint, to 33444. That's 2 3s, 4 4s. Podcast blueprint to 33444. So now until next episode, it's time for you to go out there, take action, and maximize your impact and your income.